Picture Rome, nearly 2000 years ago. The amphitheaters are alive with sound, acrobats tumbling, flute players echoing, and crowds shouting. Drama here is not a quiet literary pursuit, but a grand public spectacle woven into festivals, religion, and politics. Unlike the Greeks, who gave us the philosophical depth of tragedy and the civic satire of comedy, the Romans were far more pragmatic. They wanted entertainment, rhetorical brilliance, and dazzling theatrical effects. Yet, from this appetite of spectacle, writers like Plautus, Terence, and Seneca emerged, whose works shaped comedy, tragedy, and literary criticisms for centuries to come. Today, we will trace back the origin, forms, and legacy of Roman drama. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. I am Dr. Riya Datto and I make videos on English literature, literary theories and linguistic topics. If that is something of importance to you, consider subscribing. Now, I am actually trying to cover the syllabus of NTA NET. This is the episode 2 and today we will discuss, as mentioned, the Roman theatre. Drama in Rome began in the 3rd century BCE. Much of it was inherited from Greece, particularly after Rome conquered the southern Italy, where Greek colonies have long established the theatrical traditions. At religious festivals called Ludi Romani, plays become a part of public entertainment. Romans had their own native farces and entertainments. The Italian farces, for example, with rustic clowns and slapstick humor. But when they encountered Greek drama, they adapted them into Latin. This adaptation gave rise to two main kinds of dramas: fabula palliata, comedies that borrowed Greek characters and settings, and fabula crepidata, tragedies based on Greek myths. Alongside this, Romans have also developed fabula tacoda and fabula praetexta, comedies and tragedies set in Roman life itself. Already we see the Roman touch. They borrowed freely, but they made drama distinctly their own, rooting it in Roman identity, Roman history, and Roman society. Tragedy in Rome has never achieved the widespread popularity that comedy enjoyed. The Roman public, unlike Athenians, preferred laughter, spectacle, and excitement. Yet Roman tragedy left a legacy that shaped the entire European tragedy. The name that stands out is Seneca, who lived in the 1st century CE. Seneca was a statesman, a philosopher, and ultimately a victim of the Emperor Nero. His plays are what we call closet drama, written more to be read than to be staged. But they are packed with themes of revenge, fate, passion, and violence. Unlike the Greeks, who often kept the acts of horrors off stage, Seneca revels in blood and gore, and children served as meals, brothers tearing one another apart, and ghosts shrieking for vengeance. His tragedies include Phaedra, Medea, Thyestes, Troades, and Florence. What distinguishes Seneca is his rhetorical style. Long soliloquies dominate his plays, reflecting his Stoic philosophy and his training in oratory. For Renaissance playwrights, rediscovering these works was electrifying. Seneca gave them the model of revenge tragedy. Without Seneca, we might not have Shakespeare's Hamlet, Keats' Spanish tragedy, and Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. So while tragedy for Romans was not for the masses, it became fuel for later ages. Comedy, however, flourished. Romans loved it, and here two names dominate: Plautus and Terence. Plautus, who lived between 254 BCE to 184 BCE, wrote comedies that were rowdy, musical, and filled with farces. His characters are wonderfully exaggerated. The braggart soldier strutting with empty boasts, the miserly old man clutching his coins, the cunning slave who outsmarts his master, and the young lovers who are desperate to be together. His play, Miles Gloriosus, introduces us to the archetype of swaggering soldiers, while Eulularia gives us the miserly old man, a figure who will reappear centuries after in Moliere's the miser. In Menachmi, we see mistaken identities between twins, a plot that Shakespeare reworks in the Comedy of Errors. Plautus's plays are the forefather of slapstick comedy, situational comedy, and even today's sitcoms. Terence, by contrast, was more refined. Born around 155 BCE, he was an African slave who was freed and rose to fame as a playwright. His plays are smoother, more subtle, and far less boisterous than the plays of Plautus. Where Plautus relies on music and farce, Terence focused on psychology, on character, and on moral dilemma. His Andrea, Eunuchus, and Adolfo explores the family tension, love affairs, and mistakes of youth with elegance and humility. Terence was admired in Renaissance as a symbol of pure language. Humanists studied him for his moral grace and rhetorical tone. So with Plautus we have the comic roots of burlesque and farces. With Terence, we have the groundwork of the comedy of manners. Together, they show us the breadth of Roman comedy, from slapstick to sophistication. But drama in Rome was not limited to literary tragedy and comedy. There were popular theatrical forms that reached much wider audience. The Italian farces, as I mentioned before, were rustic plays with stock characters. The clown, the glutton, the fool. They were improvised, filled with bawdy humor, and enormously popular. They are the forerunners of Italy's Commedia dell'arte. There were also mimes, not silent as we might imagine today, but comic sketches often performed by women, a rarity in the ancient world. Mime could be vulgar, even obscene, but it was loved by the crowd. And then there were pantomime, a more elevated form, a solo dancer enacting a story while a chorus narrated and the musicians played. Pantomime combined dance, music, and myth, was in some way the ancestor of ballet and opera. So Roman theatre was not only literary, it was also a living popular art of variety, spectacle, and entertainment. If we look at Roman dramas as a whole, certain figures stand out. Firstly, it borrowed heavily from Greece but reshaped those borrowings into Roman tastes. Where the Greeks sought moral and philosophical exploration, the Romans sought spectacle and rhetoric. Second, Roman plays thrived on stock characters, figures like clever slave or pompous soldiers that would travel through time into medieval moral plays, into commedia dell'arte, into modern drama. Third, rhetoric mattered enormously. Roman education trained the young men for public speaking, and drama became another arena for showcasing the rhetorical skills. Plautus, Terence, and Seneca all wrote plays that doubled as lessons of eloquence. Finally, stagecraft in Rome was ambitious. Permanent stone theatres, modeled on but larger than Greek theatres, provided grand venue for performance. Yet over time, drama began to decline. By 4th century CE, as Christianity spread, theatre was condemned as pagan. The decline of drama in Rome coincided with the rise of the church. Before we close, we must not forget the critical voice of Horace. Around 20 BC, he wrote the Ars Poetica, or the art of poetry. It was not a systematic theory like Aristotle's Poetics, but rather advice to poets and playwrights. Horace emphasized on unity, proportion, and decorum, what he called the proper fittingness of style and subject. Above all, he declared that the purpose of poetry is to instruct as well as to entertain. This phrase would echo for centuries. Since Aristotle's work was largely unknown in medieval Europe, Horace's Ars Poetica became a guiding text for Renaissance and neoclassical dramatists. From the French tragedians like Racine and Corneille to the English critics like Dryden and Pope, Horace's principles of unity, harmony, and decorum shaped the course of Western drama. Roman drama then lives a double legacy. In comedy, Plautus and Terence created forms and characters that resurface in Shakespeare, Molière, and even modern television comedies. In tragedy, Seneca provided the model of revenge tragedy, rhetoric, and Stoic reflection that inspired the Elizabethans. In criticism, Horace gave the Western society the first lasting principles of literary decorum. And let us not forget the popular forms mime, farce, pantomime that kept theatre alive among ordinary people, laid the groundwork for later European performance drama. So while Roman drama may seem derivative of the Greeks, it was not a pale imitation. It was an adaptation, transformation of the theatre that made the theatre serve the Roman taste, Roman society, and Roman politics. Its echoes are everywhere. In Shakespeare's tragic heroes, in comic archetypes of modern film, in the principles of neoclassical criticism, and even in the variety of shows and sitcoms we watch today. From the blood-soaked pages of Seneca to the witty elegance of Terence and the rowdy laughter of Plautus, Roman drama remains a cornerstone in the history of Western theatre. That was a lecture on Roman drama for NET aspirants. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and for more videos on NET preparation, keep an eye on my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.